The Miraluka were a race known for their deep connection to the Force, which may have actually been an evolutionary response to their lack of biological eyes. We know that, not unlike Neo from the Matrix, almost all Miraluka use the Force to see rather than biological sight. My favorite of the race is probably Jarek from Jedi Dark Forces 2, but he is not the topic of today's video. Instead, we are looking at a Jedi Master from 4,000 years earlier, Camellia. Camellia was gifted with not only the standard Miralukan sight, but also the much rarer ability to see into the future, which led her to study as a Jedi. Her story is told through the Knights of the Old Republic comic, which rather uniquely actually came out after most other aspects of the Legends continuity, including Revenge of the Sith and the launch of even the Legacy comics. I've got a few videos planned about the comic run, including why a group of Jedi Masters massacred their Padawans, which I'll actually have to touch on slightly during today's video. After the fall and subsequent defeat of former Jedi Exar Kun, a small group of powerful Jedi seers formed the Jedi Covenant, which had the express goal of preventing another Jedi from taking the galaxy into darkness. Surviving Jedi dealing with the shame and guilt of their contemporaries falling to the dark side is an extremely common theme in both Star Wars Legends and canon. We have both Obi-Wan and Yoda, who in their own way contributed to Anakin's fall. In canon, of course, we have Luke and Kylo Ren, and in Legends we have Luke and Jacen Solo. Needless to say, it was a fairly motivating factor for the group, and they were willing to do basically anything to prevent another Dark Lord from rising within their ranks. The comic series starts off with the aforementioned Padawan Massacre, where, after a shared visions, the Masters of the Jedi Covenant killed their students, thinking that one of them was destined to become a Dark Lord. They weren't innocents. Exar Kun was a Padawan once too. His master had a warning but failed to act. We five are part of a sacred trust, a Jedi Covenant, to stand watch and make certain that never happens again. Of course, there's a lot more to unpack here, including the nature of shatter points, force visions, the unifying force, and more. But again, if you're interested, let me know down in the comments and also give this video a like. Anyway, that was one of but many prophecies shared by the Council, and they remained active even after the massacre and into the Mandalorian Wars. The vision we'll be discussing today came about a year after the massacre, and as you might suspect based on the opening, was experienced by Camellia. While at a funeral for one of the Covenant's members, she has a vision which shows an apocalyptic future, including a massive black cyborg flanked by the Jedi's Luke Skywalker, Cade Skywalker, and Zane Carrick. In that, she also saw the Mur Talisman and its creator. The Mur Talisman was an extraordinarily powerful dark side artifact, which the Covenant had long hunted, and they knew had various powers related to the manipulation of life itself. One of the talisman's main powers was actually the creation of Rakghouls, but could otherwise manipulate beings on a physical and mental level. It was actually rediscovered, and the Jedi Council sent a master, known as Celeste, to hunt it down, while also searching for a Jedi named Zane, who was believed to be responsible for the massacre of the Padawans. The Force vision itself probably related to the fact that the talisman was such a great threat and had the potential to destroy possibly even the entire galaxy through a non-stop Rakghoul plague, especially given that the Mandalorian Wars were currently heating up. Zane was probably in the vision because he was heavily involved with the dispatching of the talisman, while the other Jedi were there most likely to reflect the fact that the talisman would again reappear, and in fact both Cade and Vader would deal with it directly. Vader actually thought about using it to take over the Empire, and perhaps that's a story for another day. But all in all, there's a lot to unpack certainly in this series, and I think the idea of bad Jedi who don't give into the dark side fully, but still commit atrocious acts is an interesting one that I'll certainly cover more in the future. But that's all I have to talk about today, at least for this. Before we leave though, I will do a hashtag Ask a Question of the Day, and that specifically comes from Justin, who says, who do you think was a better pilot, Luke or Anakin? Also, who do you think would win, Luke in a New Republic X-Wing or Anakin in a Jedi Starfighter? That's a great question, and honestly, I think both Luke and Anakin were probably in the top 3 or so pilots of their era. I honestly do think, though, that Luke has some better feats. There's that moment when, in the courtship of Princess Leia, he pilots the Millennium Falcon while also operating as a co-pilot and controlling the gunners all through the Force. And then we just see a lot of his piloting skills in the Thrawn trilogy, and of course even more as we go into the New Jedi Order, Legacy, and I guess a little bit in Fate of the Jedi. I think at their primes, Luke would have been better just because he would have had more flight hours in. However, if we take Anakin at the Battle of Coruscant versus Luke, how we see him in, say, Return of the Jedi, then I definitely think Anakin, who has been fighting in the Clone Wars, does win. The question of ships is an interesting one. The Jedi Interceptor is probably better in this scenario because a Jedi can take it to its full abilities, and I think it probably is a better dogfighter one-on-one. We can see that X-Wings can be outflown, so unless Luke has a highly advanced New Republic fighter, then I'm going to give that matchup to Anakin. But I think need to look at the lore a bit more, check out some feats for the two pilots before I make up my mind definitively. That's just my opinion though, curious to hear what you guys think. Make sure you leave it down below in the comments, and if you have questions you'd like me to answer in the future, also leave that with the hashtag AskEck. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Until next time, have a great night, and may the Force be with you.